Do you know that silent sinking feeling? The one that arrives the moment you sit down to create and realize your mind is a blank room with the lights off? You tell yourself you'll start in 10 minutes, then an hour later you're still rearranging tabs, waiting for inspiration to be kind. That ache of "I'll do it tomorrow" is not moral failure. It's a predictable cognitive trap. Too much choice, too much self-editing, and an inner critic that treats every half-formed idea like a crime scene. Today, I want to teach you one brutal, beautiful trick that breaks that trap in under 3 minutes and reliably produces new directions, drafts, and surprising breakthroughs. Compress any idea into exactly 6 words, write it down, and then use that tiny phrase as a launchpad. This is not a gimmick. It's a precise behavioral hack that combines constraint, speed, and iteration to short-circuit your sensor and force the core of meaning to surface. I'll give you a simple 3-part framework: compress, shock, expand, and practical rituals you can use right now to turn creative block into creative momentum. First, feel the problem again, not with shame but with attention. When you face a blank page, your brain predicts the cost of producing something good: time, risk, judgment. The frontal cortex says better safe than wrong, and so you make nothing. Constraints change the math. A limit doesn't reduce creativity, it channels it. The 6-word rule is minimal enough to be achievable instantly, yet rich enough to carry image, conflict, and direction. Compress, your first job is to force the idea into 6 words. That's it. No paragraphs, no planning, no perfect phrasing. Exactly 6 words. Why 6? Because it's long enough to suggest a small narrative, a subject, an action, a mood, and short enough to prevent your inner editor from saying, "Not precise enough." Think of those 6 words as a tiny promise to your future self. A breadcrumb that says, "Here is the heart of what I want to explore." Let me walk you through the ritual in its purest form. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Take a blank note, push away distractions for 1 minute, and write the first 6 words that arrive for your topic. If you're stuck on an article, "Why habits fail, tiny context, huge consequences," that's 6 words. If you're trying to invent an app, "Make tiny wins visible, habit growth," 6 words. If you're stuck on a short story, "She swallowed courage, mailed the unsent letter," 6 words. The point is speed, do not polish. If you get 5 or 7 words, adjust, add or remove a tiny word until you hit 6. That micro-constraint flips off the critic. Now the second move, shock. Once you have a 6-word core, you deliberately make a small, productive disturbance. This is the provocative nudge that forces new associations. There are 3 simple forms of shock I use and teach: swap a word, flip the perspective, or add a weird modifier. Swap a word by replacing one element with its opposite or a surprising synonym. "She swallowed courage, mailed the unsent letter" becomes "He swallowed silence, mailed the unsent record." The replacement ruptures your first story and reveals a different narrative angle. Flip the perspective. Change tense or narrator. Make tiny wins visible, habit growth becomes make tiny losses visible, habit truth. Now you're exploring failure, not only success. Add a weird modifier. Take any ordinary word and tack on a color, sound, or incongruous adjective. Tiny becomes tiny fluorescent wins. The shock is not chaos, it's a focused perturbation that generates contrast, and contrast is how the brain finds meaning. You can do 1 shock or 3, each gives you a fresh 6-word seed. The third move, and where the real momentum lives, is expand. Take one of your 6-word seeds and ask 3 practical, immediate expansion questions and answer them in 1 sentence each. What is the hook? 1 sentence. What is the opposite idea I could test? 1 sentence. What's the smallest next step to try? 1 sentence. From "She swallowed courage, mailed the unsent letter," you might write, hook. A person finds moral courage in a tiny ritual. Opposite. What if mailing the letter made things worse? Next step. Draft the letter scene in 300 words or write a timeline of consequences. That tiny expansion converts a cryptic hint into an actual project plan. Let me be explicit about why this works at the cognitive level. Your mind is overloaded when faced with an amorphous task. It prefers coherence and short sequences. A 6-word compression reduces cognitive load, creating a precise micro-goal your working memory can hold. The shock phase introduces novelty, which triggers dopamine and attention. The expansion then channels that attention into action. Put together, these 3 steps form a simple loop you can repeat in minutes and scale into hours. Compress, shock, expand, repeat. Now, let me give you a practical sprint you can run tonight, even if you haven't written in months. Step 0. Choose a domain, an email, a LinkedIn post, a product idea, a tiny scene, a conversation you want to have. Step 1. 60-second compress. Create 10 different 6-word cores in 10 minutes. Don't stop at one, the diverse seeds create options. Step 2. Choose 3 that feel sharp and apply one shock technique to each. Replace a noun, flip the narrator, or add a color. Step 3. For each shocked seed, expand with the 3 one-sentence questions. Step 4. Choose one expansion and commit to one tiny action within 24 hours. Write 300 words, make a sketch, record a 60-second voice note, or send a test message. That's it. This transforms indecision into a practice. To illustrate with a real example, imagine you are building a side business and feel paralyzed by the many directions it could take. You do the sprint and generate 10 6-word seeds. Weekend chefs crave painless dinner solutions now. Subscription of gratitude notes for busy parents. Gamified microhabit app for midnight prototyping. Rent a plant service for anxious offices, and so on. One of those stands out. Weekend chefs crave painless dinner solutions now. You shock it, swap chefs for workers, get weekend workers crave painless dinner solutions now, and suddenly your target audience becomes broader and more specific. Weekday workers who need weekend relief. Expand. Hook. A time-boxed meal system for exhausted professionals. Opposite. What if they prefer cooking as therapy? Next step. Prototype 3 recipe kits and offer them to 5 friends. You now have a testable plan from a 6-word seed. Another powerful use. Breakthrough perfectionism. Perfectionism loves to stall you by promising someday a perfect draft. A 6-word constraint makes perfectionism irrelevant. You can't be perfect in 6 words. You can only be honest, risky, and fast. The ritual trains you to let go. Over time, you hack your internal probability estimate. If one tiny seed becomes a decent product or paragraph, your confidence recalibrates and you stop waiting for the mythic right moment. There are specialist variants that are worth adopting depending on your goal. If you write fiction, try the character plus secret plus action template inside 6 words. Library clerk hides maps, sells forbidden directions. If you design products, use user plus pain plus outcome. Remote teams forget birthdays, scheduled celebration prompts. If you need a headline, the problem plus promise, 6-word frame works. Stop scattered mornings, reclaim 2 hours daily. I recommend keeping a permanent 6-word deck, a simple note or index card file where you collect promising 6-word ideas. Revisit it weekly and force 1 micro-action per idea. This collection is low-friction storage of generative material. Because each entry is brief, your brain can recombine them into new projects faster than long notes. Now, a common objection: 6 words seem too tiny. Won't the ideas be shallow? The answer is no, they're intentionally skeletal. A 6-word core acts like a seed genome. Rich structure grows from it. Think of haiku or epigrams. Extreme brevity often reveals a sharper insight than an essay because the mind does the missing work. Another objection: what if my 6 words are cliché? Good. Clichés are often condensed cultural truths. The productive move is not to avoid clichés, but to remix them via shock. Replace success with quiet success, or switch productivity to playful productivity, and the cliché fractures into a new angle. Troubleshooting tips. If your inner critic interrupts during the 60-second compress, set an even stricter timer, 30 seconds, and promise yourself you won't edit for 10 minutes. If you're tempted to polish, write 10 6-word variants rapidly. The pressure of quantity dissolves the need for perfection. If you feel stuck on the shock phase, pick from a fixed cheat sheet. Opposite, color, sensory, time, emotion. For instance, add a sensory modifier like metallic or a time modifier like midnight. Metallic wins in midnight city kitchens. Weird modifiers force your brain into associations that tidy logic would never allow. Let me give you 3 compact rituals to anchor this habit into daily life. Morning sprint. First thing after coffee, create 3 6-word cores about any projects on your plate. Pick one and do 1 tiny action within the hour. Evening harvest. Before sleep, compress 1 event or conversation into 6 words. It sharpens memory and provides follow-up insight. Weekly remix. Sunday afternoon. Run a 10-seed compress plus 3 shock cycle for a single project and choose the most promising expansion to prototype that week. Pair the 6-word practice with micro rewards. A badge, a checkmark, a 60-second walk. Behavior change happens when you make the next step ridiculously easy and slightly pleasurable. For teams, use the 6-word method to clarify strategy in meetings. Instead of asking, "What's the plan?" Require each participant to craft a 6-word summary of the desired outcome. Read them aloud. The differences illuminate assumptions and quickly reveal misalignment, turning hours of meeting flounder into 10 minutes of clarity. For teachers or coaches, have students compress to 6 words before asking for long answers. It focuses attention and reveals misunderstanding quickly. The 6-word constraint also serves as an empathy elevator in conversations. When you feel stuck explaining something, ask the other person to summarize their understanding in 6 words. The result is startlingly revealing and keeps both parties honest. Scalability is part of the charm. The method works for a tweet and a thesis because the mechanism is the same: quick constraint, novelty, and micro-action. After months of practice, you'll notice 2 durable upgrades to your creative life. First, you will produce more raw material. Quantity breeds quality because you're putting generative seeds into the world faster than your inner sensor can prune them. Second, your threshold for beginning drops. The simple act of crafting 6 words becomes an initiation ritual that signals, "Now we begin." And that ritual itself primes the brain for follow-through. Finally, a gentle note about courage. This practice asks you to be vulnerable in miniature. 6 words can feel exposed because they are raw. That vulnerability is not a weakness. It's the sparking wire for discovery. Each tiny imperfect seed that survives shock and expansion proves to you that small action leads to insight. So here is a complete, actionable checklist you can use now. Choose a project, set a 60-second timer, write 10 6-word cores, apply 1 shock to 3 of them, answer the 3 expansion questions for each. Pick 1 expansion and do 1 tiny action within 24 hours and record the result. Repeat weekly and keep a deck of your favorite seeds. If you do this for 4 weeks, you will have generated 280 seeds, hundreds of directions to explore, dozens of micro-tests, and at least a few surprising breakthroughs. The 6-word habit trains your brain to prefer doing over waiting. It rewires perfectionism into curiosity. It turns a mountain into a series of playful pebbles you can toss and watch bounce. So when you feel that old familiar hush of "I'll start tomorrow," remember this: you don't need infinite time or the right mood. You need a tiny constraint and a small brave action. For the next 60 seconds, close your eyes, pick 1 project, and write 6 words. Do it now. Then shock one of those 6 words, expand for 1 sentence, and do 1 tiny step. That single micro-movement is how ideas die or begin to breathe. If you want a final nudge, try this experiment for 7 days. Every morning, compress 1 new idea into 6 words, and at week's end, pick the seed that surprised you most. Expand it into a small prototype and share it with 1 person. Creativity is not a mood, it's a practice. 6 words are the smallest possible promise you can make to yourself. And promises, tiny as they are, can change the arc of what you create.